What would you do if you saw your sister infected by evil? How far would a priest go to rid the world of a demon? What lengths would a demon go to make a person theirs? Today we test the believability of the demonic possession of Gottliebin Dittus.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after if we find this believable. Wow, how are you doing?
I'm good. I forgot that this was going to be a possession demonic case, and It was just like, I don't know why. For some reason, I was expecting this to be like a silly cryptid.
No.
But nope, we're talking about very scary.
This is going to get heavy.
Oof.
This is maybe...
Is there a trigger warning?
Maybe mutilation.
Okay.
Yeah. This is supposedly like the worst demonic possession
ever.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So I guess that's being said, let me tell you my source really quick.
Okay.
This is basically just one article. Like I found one really long article. I was like, ooh, it's a good story.
Is it Mysterious Universe?
It's not.
Okay.
It is Real Horror Diaries. Horror Diaries.
Yeah.
.blogspot.
Okay. They you know what? Just because you don't want to pay for it doesn't mean you don't got a good story to tell.
That's true. It's a good story.
And that's still, but I would rather take a blogspot over a .net. Don't come at me.
Aren't that .net's government? No, it's .gov.
No, that's like someone already has a .com where I don't want to pay for the .com.
Oh, I see.
There's .org, .gov, .edu.
.edu, that's education.
That is education.
Yeah. There was an article on Stanford written about this.
Yeah?
I did not want to pay
Someone's
Stanford.
thesis was like, yeah, I don't remember anything I learned this semester, so I'm just going to write about this demon case.
Definitely could be theology or stuff like that.
Producer Ben might know about it then.
He might. I don't know. This takes place in the 1800s.
I didn't mean because he was old. I mean because of theology.
No, I know that.
Okay.
So let's just get into it. Outside of a small town in Germany in the 1800s, Gottliebin, I'm going to teach you how to say it.
Oh, so this isn't their name. This is
No, the name is Gottliebin.
So her name is Gottliebin and
Gottliebin.
The town's name is Gottliebin.
The town's name is, I didn't write it down because it's
So this isn't, okay, so this is her name, not
her name
city,
is
not the town's name.
Gottliebin.
Okay.
I'm going to teach you how to say it.
Okay.
Gottliebin. Gottliebin.
But you didn't do that with yourself for the town.
The town was like real German. It's
Okay.
like real German.
Okay.
Like I'd have to take a couple language courses.
Is it real though?
Yeah, it's real. I looked it up.
Okay.
I looked it up because I wasn't sure exactly.
You don't want that. You don't want that Akiakovic hate. I get it.
No, it's like rural Germany too. Like it's not even any.
So like, this is where like an Outlast video game would take place.
Like the closest town is Munich, but that's still probably like an hour or two away.
Okay. By horse and buggy.
So Gottliebin Dittus and her family live peacefully for a time.
Until this story.
Yeah, pretty much. The family moved into a small apartment shortly after the death of both of the parents. The family consisted of two brothers named Anders and Hans, and three sisters named Katarina, Anna, and Gottliebin. What, the names?
Yeah, it had to be a Hans.
Hans. Of course there's a Hans.
I kind of like Gottliebin.
I didn't like it at first, but it's grown on me.
I could see how it'd be easier to go to Gottel instead of Gottlieb.
Mm-hmm. So quickly after the family moved into their apartment, they started dealing with the typical infestation stage of the possession.
So who's like the elder? Is it just brothers and sisters?
Yeah, they didn't say. They just said Anders and Hans. So I assume they're the oldest.
I wonder if it's just like, hey, it's 1800s. People don't live super long. So when they kick the bucket, you're like, well, I guess it's me now.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like, you got to get a job, Hans.
Yeah.
Just can't play Call of Duty
Hans
all day.
was at the worst meal. Doing worst. Making worst? Probably. Sausage.
Yeah. But he's getting paid even worse.
That's pretty good. Yeah, so quickly before we get into this, there are three stages of demonic possession. They're infestation, oppression, and possession. This is going to go through all three.
Okay.
You're going to see it. So this is the infestation stage, like almost immediately as they moved in.
So do you think it's the apartment?
You'll see.
Okay.
The new home was creaking and banging at all hours. And it seemed as though the new home might actually fall apart on itself because of the noises. But like the new house, Gottliebin's reputation also started to get shaken. It all started in the first day in the new apartment for her. She was thought to be a pious girl before the family moved into their new home. But the first day she was there, she was praying at their new dining room table. The next second, she was on the ground having a quote-unquote fit. Gottliebin kept getting sick after this first day. She just never seemed to get better. The rest of the family couldn't not notice how loud and omnipresent the sounds also were in the house. It seemed like they were connected. It was becoming oppressive. After about a year of this noise and sickness, it was fair to say that they had already moved into the oppression stage of possession. And it was focusing on Gottliebin.
In what ways is it oppressing her?
It's focusing this sickness on her. She never really recovered from this fit.
Okay, so it's not like... Okay, so it's like an illness that she just can't seem to recover from.
Yeah, and also these noises are not quite centered around her room, but they also find their way there. So the first person that was told anything about what was happening in the home was the local pastor, Blumhardt. It's like Blumhardt, but...
With a T?
With T at the end.
Yeah.
So Blumhardt was a Lutheran theologist who would eventually write the book about the events that happened to Gottliebin. As things get even stronger in the home and time passed, Gottliebin decided to open up to Blumhardt. Maybe it was his unflinching way he spun his sermons that infatuated her to him, but somehow he won over this poor, sick orphan.
Is it weird that he would do that?
I don't think it's weird, but I think it's strange that someone who might be in the oppression stage would come to a priest. I think it's very telling of her mental state.
Okay. See, I would say in the possessed stage, absolutely, but I'm not, like, this isn't my bag. Like, I'm not the most knowledgeable about this stuff. But I feel like if she's feeling oppressed and she's not yet possessed, I wonder if that would lend itself to seeking help in that way.
I think it would be, but also you almost be scared of retaliation, I think, at this point. But she did. She went and she talked to him.
I wonder what the family's thinking at this point. Like, it went from, like, now we're in a year in, are they like, it's demonic, or like, why isn't she getting better? Like science and health isn't, I mean, they don't know what happens 200 years later, but obviously when it comes to health, people got sick and died in the 1800s. So I wonder if some of the family was like, maybe she just has something that she can't kick,
I think that's probably what they're thinking. And they're probably not really worried about the sounds because I think they're too tired to fall asleep anyway.
From the worst factory?
From something factory. So she told him about the noises in her house and that she was suffering from, quote, night temptations that the article didn't really get into, which I can only assume is like
self-harm, maybe.
I think other kind of maybe self-pleasure. That's what I imagine that is.
See, my mind went to self-harm, but it kind of leaves it's ambiguous and leaves it open to the imagination.
I don't know what that means. She also told him that the sounds were progressing in a way that were scaring her. Now, Blumhardt didn't really know what to do with that at the time, so he told Gottliebin to pray, and he sent her home.
He's like, that's above my pay grade, dude. I have to work night shifts at the worst factory, so.
Oh, it's Germany. This is 1840, by the way.
Exactly.
1841.
Okay.
A month or so later, Gottliebin and Blumhardt met again, but only after Gottliebin came down with a seemingly deadly disease, even more than before.
Okay, so I know this isn't funny, but when I'm picturing Gottliebin right now, all I'm picturing is that episode where SpongeBob has the suds and it's like eye rolls off his face. Like, that's what I picture. She's like, I think I might need help. And he's like, did you try praying? When in doubt, that's where my mind goes.
It's a good one. It's a good reference. So she was diagnosed with an infection of her face.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did her eye roll down?
It didn't say that, but I think you can imagine it might have.
Okay.
And Blumhardt came to her bedside while she was in the hospital to pray for her.
So she left now. She's not in the apartment at this point.
She's in the hospital.
Okay. Okay.
And every time the pastor, Blumhardt, would try to make eye contact with Gottliebin, she would adjust her head to the side to avoid his gaze. And as the girl sat there with her hands folded in her lap naturally, when Blumhardt would start to pray, he would notice that her hands would consciously unfold. And this is where like the starting stages are starting to come in.
We're switching here.
Because of this kind of behavior at Gottliebin's bedside, Blumhardt decided that he didn't want to help her anymore. Like the rest of the town, because the rest of the town was starting to distanced themselves from the family, he also distanced himself from Gottliebin.
He must have just thought he couldn't help.
Yes, I think you're right.
I think, and I'm not trying to give him a pass because that's kind of shitty, but it must have just got to a point where he's like, why fake it? Why take things? Or maybe he was afraid, but he must have just truly thought that he was not somebody that could help her, which is scary in a way.
In the article, it seemed like more like Blumhardt thought that she just wasn't like religious, which doesn't really make sense. I think he was kind of annoyed by her behavior.
Like, if you're not going to help yourself, I'm not going to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Gottliebin had recovered from her face infection by the next spring of April 1842.
They just gave her some makeup.
However, the siblings came to Blumhardt, the pastor, for advice and guidance after the hauntings at the house became too much.
So she was at the hospital and the things probably left. So the family's probably like, oh, see, it's not that bad. And then she comes home. And immediately, as soon as she comes home, or is it like, so is it as immediately she comes home, things get bad and the family notices? Or I wonder if she gets, quote, cured, and then it's like a new level of demonic activity and then they notice.
I think it ramps up after she comes back from the hospital.
How do you think, this could be something for the discussion, but her going from having a sickness, okay, so I think if it's like a Hollywood movie, she would have a sickness and be possessed, and then she would be cleansed, and then the sickness would go away. But in this case, the sickness doesn't equal her being cleansed. It actually means things are even worse. What do you think about that?
I think the sickness is, the demonic probably wants to hang on to, or it's easier to get a fix hold in people that are already down, ill, sick.
So you think once it's inside and the possession's fully done, it wants to be in a healthier form?
Yeah.
So just fix it, cure it?
Well, I don't think it's fully possessed yet. I still think it's wiggling its way in there. There's a lot more to the story.
Oh, I'm not saying we're done. I just, it's interesting to me that she got better.
I think she was away from the house and it's not a full possession yet.
Okay. So maybe being away from the house was good for her.
I think so. So the house started to have constant sounds that were now so loud the neighbors could hear them from outside of the house. Gottliebin and others also witnessed glowing lights shooting around her room at night. And worse than that, Gottliebin had been telling her family that she'd been seeing the ghost of a woman that she had known from the village that had died 2 years earlier.
That's weird.
The woman would stand in front of her bed and stare at her. She would also be holding a dead child in her arms while she did this.
Wow. This is the scene where she goes to the library and researches the dead girl and sees how she got possessed, and then montage.
The dead woman standing at her bedside would say things to Gottliebin as well, like, quote, "I want to be left alone." I'm just like, you're the one.
Yeah, you kind of came in my room,
I did notice that. I was like, you're the one here, though. Like,
yeah, all right, bye.
After hearing how the haunting had gotten even worse, Blumhardt wanted to help again, and he came to the home and spoke to Gottliebin, and he told her not to even engage with the spirit because he thought it might have been evil or had evil intentions.
He probably said bad juju.
He probably did. He probably said, it's #believable. With this bad juju shirt on. So less than a week after Blumhardt had visited the home, the family found a note under Gottliebin's bed. There was writing on it, but it was illegible because the whole note was covered in soot. And next to it were a few coins that were wrapped in paper also covered in soot. Within that same month, a disembodied light found its way behind the stove and alerted the family to things that were buried behind the stove. It housed things like salt, chalk, bones, and even more coins wrapped in paper.
What? Until the coins, I'd have been like, I'm not interested. I'm going to keep the stove where it is.
Well, I think that's like old witchcraft.
Yeah. No, yes.
Yeah, it's gotta be, right?
Yeah. I mean, soot would infer that something was burned, which feels like a little ritualistic, right?
Mm-hmm. I wonder what the note said. I do. I really do.
My bad. I think I conjured something. Don't look behind the stove. It's like those coins you get at the zoo where you like, you turn the crank. Albuquerque Zoo, 1832. Look, Ma, it's got a sloth on it.
Wow. Exotic. Blumhardt assumed that these objects were a part of a dark rite, an evil magic. He took the paper sack and burned all of what was inside of it. and they all hoped that this would strip the strangeness happening in the house. But it didn't. It seemed that upon burning, the evil inside was unleashed and the paranormal happenings increased.
My bad, Blumhardt.
The sound of heavy footsteps walked through the whole house and never even stopped during the day. The boots would go out of their way surrounding Gottliebin when she was home by herself. But not only that, when she was by herself and these boots would surround her, tables that were around her would lift off the ground and shake violently. But this only happened when she was alone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as anyone would, the pastor Blumhardt decided to do an investigation of the property and the family. He got a small team of investigators to come over one evening, and they searched the house. While Blumhardt went into the living room, and he sat there, and he heard loud knocks coming from Gottliebin's room. The knocks were followed by loud bangs. To combat this demonic activity, Blumhardt started to pray, but when he did, the windows around him rattled as if they were about to shatter. The chairs that were in the Gottliebin's room around her threw themselves up into the air and crashed back down. The team removed the floorboards to look for the source of the banging, but nothing was found to account for the banging. But they did find more paper packages filled with powders, coins, and they also found a pot that contained small bones mixed with mud.
Blumhardt's like, you know what? Let's burn it. And then...
It's wild.
So, well, okay. So one of my initial thoughts, as soon as they got to the house, is going to be, why is this happening? Where did this come from? And clearly there was some bad, ill-intentioned things happening, conjuring. Well, actually, I guess I shouldn't say ill-intentioned, because even if they were trying to do something good with it, it could have brought something evil. Based on some of the items they found, it doesn't sound great with like bones and
No,
things.
it does not sound good.
It doesn't sound good. But we can't know for certain what they were trying to do, but at least it seems like we can find the origin of what's happening here.
There might be an answer at the end. Maybe. We'll talk about it and see if we think that's an answer.
Love to know who is it the leasee? The lessee? The person who rented it before them.
The last person to lease the house.
Yeah, but it's like the leasee, because there's the lesser. It's like when you're signing. Anyway, that person, I wonder what they were up to, if they have anything to say for themselves.
This episode brought to you by LegalZoom.
LegalZoom.
Yeah.
Business end.
So the day after the investigation, the family of the five went to church. After church, Gottliebin was found on her bed unconscious. She showed signs of being suffocated, and her skin was glowing red. She woke up on her own after about an hour being found, despite the fact that doctors were called and worked on her. In a trembling, weak voice, she told Blumhardt that she had seen the dead woman again after coming back from church. The entity was waiting in the living room for Gottliebin with her dead child in her arms, and that evil washed over Gottliebin, and it made her faint. With all the evil they found in the house and this revolution from Gottliebin, Blumhardt decided to move the family out of the apartment into a new home. Hoping moving the family would save them, he asked the family not to return. The city even went as far as to put 2 cops on patrol of the house at all times. The town wanted to believe that the horror was starting to fade, but Gottliebin and Blumhardt were hiding an even darker secret. The banging and the footsteps followed the family to their new home, and it somehow got worse. Gottliebin started to experience constant convulsions that would get worse over time. She would often faint and convulse in front of Blumhardt. White foam would come out of her mouth, and her arms would flail around violently, and her head would turn while lifting her body while unconscious.
Her head would turn? Like turn or like turn?
Turn. Not all the way around, I don't think.
Okay.
Now, she would wake occasionally from these fits, and she would speak of seeing the demonic float around while having these attacks. Out of frustration and fear of watching these attacks, Blumhardt rushed over to Gottliebin's side while she was having an attack, and he put his hands on her while he was praying. He whispered to Gottliebin, "Fold your hands and pray," and she managed to come out of her attack. That's when Blumhardt suspected the possession of Gottliebin, and the oppression had moved to possession. That's the dark secret.
Oh, that's the secret?
That's the secret.
Oh,
it got worse.
It's one of those Those Shakespearean ones where we're all in on it.
Yeah. We know it.
The family doesn't know.
He continued to use his hands as a tactic to ward off his attacks until it was clear the demonic was too strong for that. While Gottliebin was having a fit one afternoon, Blumhardt noticed that while she was having her attack, Gottliebin's face contorted into pure hate. She started to swing at him, scratch at him, try to attack him, and then her eyes rolled back in her head, and she started to chant in a demonic voice. Don't know what she chanted. So this is a block quote about what was supposedly inside of Gottliebin, the possession that happened to her. It was said that Gottliebin's body was hosting 14 demons, and they were all being led by a spirit of the dead woman who had been previously seen. This woman was apparently a murderer who killed 2 children and buried them in her field. She was also a dark magic practitioner and thus condemned to her restless afterlife. She was forever bound to the devil and who was determined to make Gottliebin suffer. With time, the darkness attached to the young woman kept getting stronger, and at one point there were 425 separate demonic entities in her body, which further increased to 1,067. End quote.
What? That's like, you know, when you go to a bar or like somewhere and then you walk in and there's like that person who has the clicker to like let you know how many people have come in. Who's like, are they checking your weight? I don't like.
Oh, it seems about 1,067 right here.
No, I think it's 1,037
Yeah.
and a 14-year-old. Unless she's speaking in tongues and they're like, unless there's like those type of conversations where he's like, go away. And then she's like, I'm not going away. And he's like, what's your name? And she's like, I'm not telling your name. How many are you? About 1,030. You know, like, unless that's how it came across, which doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, was it Roland Doe? No, it wasn't Roland Doe. There was, I think there's a story where, you know, like lying about how many are actually
I think it's Anna.
Maybe. I don't know. I remember a story where it was just the idea that the demon can lie to make it seem more powerful.
Yeah.
Now, it's still worth reporting. Like, if she said that, I think it's worth saying. But the fact that Blumhardt could just know that or trust that.
We don't have where he got the source from. I assume it comes from conversations.
Yeah. But even so, that could be hyping it up to like.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like, if I eat too much Mexican food, because Mexican is my indulgence. If I eat too much Mexican food, if I have like my entree, you get the queso, you get the salsa, you know, and then maybe at the end sopapillas, and you're just like, oh my God, like I'm full off that. Can you imagine 400 demons? Like she probably always feels, I mean, well, I guess she would feel gross based on what's happening. But
I think so, yeah.
Just the amount of, aside from the food analogy, I was in sociology class one time and my sociology professor came over to me and got really close like this. You can't see, but Charlie can see.
Very close. Really it's very close.
And she was like, "Am I making you feel uncomfortable?" And I was, you know, like 18. I didn't want to be, you know, uncool. I was like, "No, I'm fine." And she's like, "Well, why won't you look at me then?" I was like, "Touche." You know what I mean? It's like when people invade your personal space, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Imagine the violation beyond just what she's actually going through, but having these things come in. And
I really like that
like
analogy. That's a really good analogy.
It's just gross. Like,
yeah, there's just this level of violation that you can't even imagine.
Yeah, I don't like it.
After this first seemingly demonic encounter, Blumhardt found Gottliebin had been hurting herself more and more often in between her fits. She would have often, quote, a bleeding nose, bleeding wounds on her chest, and strands of hair forcefully plucked out by herself.
Oh, she's going through it.
Gottliebin even reported disembodied hands choking her at night. And these hands would disappear, but they would leave liquid-filled blisters that would take weeks to heal.
Could you imagine just the mindset of like Blumhardt or Gottliebin waking up? Like you just wake up and you just know you're in for this today. Like if he wasn't staying with her and he was like traveling to her every single day, just imagine that commute. Just like, what am I going to experience today?
It's gotta be rough. It's gotta be so rough.
Like, and this is months and months.
This is another quote. With time, Blumhardt started finding Gottliebin with her body swollen with water, and she would vomit out whole buckets of water at a time. She started being assaulted with sprite-like figures, and on multiple occasions, she'd be found in her bed swimming in her own blood. Not being able to bear the ordeal, the young woman tried to kill herself, but the evil entities inside her did not let her. The pastor kept working day and night, and successfully relieved the multiple demons every day. End quote.
Jeez.
So it looked like the possession was working, or the exorcism.
He could get all 1,000, but he was getting paid by the hour. He's like, I'm gonna knock a couple out a day.
Although it was still weird because in February of 1843, Gottliebin was vomiting strange things. She started with small pieces of glass, pieces of iron, and there was even nails that were coming out of her.
Oh.
It didn't stop there.
I don't care which nail you're referring to, but both are disgusting.
She was even vomiting huge shoe buckles, like buckles on a shoe.
Yeah.
It was said that she would vomit out pins and lengths of wire, knitting needles. And I think possibly the worst thing that she said to vomit was small animals.
What?
Like bats, frogs, and even locusts.
I don't know. The pin's pretty bad. Like this part's actually making my stomach churn. Like some of the stuff, like
it's bad.
Yeah, like
really
that's
bad.
just, and this is going.
Can you imagine seeing that?
Yeah, you're gonna stop. You're gonna make me throw up. This is going on like 2 years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And they're Hans and them. They're just going to work, just hanging out. Are they helping at all? I mean, that family. This can't be a secret anymore.
No, they're there. They're in this. Speaking of the family, during this time, her sister Katharina and the brother Hans, they kind of became like possessed by proxy. Katharina even shouted in rage that she would cut Blumhardt into 1,000 pieces.
Jeez.
She had to be restrained so she wouldn't attack the priest. Finally, after 2 years of this horrific demonic possession, Gottliebin and her family were completely set loose from the clutches of the evil because of Blumhardt's priestly efforts.
So it was just like
it was a long exorcism.
Yeah, it was. So it wasn't like one big exorcism. It was just imagine
just
like
piece by piece.
How many days do you think he came by after just to check? Because like after 2 years, it's not like all of a sudden the sun shines, you hear birds chirping. Like it's like there'd still be that fear. Like, is it going to come back? Is it actually done? You know?
Well, after the possession was done, Gottliebin confessed that she was exposed to magic when she used it to heal her illnesses when she was very young. What really brought her to her possession was when she visited her cousin when she was 7. Her cousin somehow, possibly, might have pledged Gottliebin's soul to the devil.
Whoops.
Whoopsie
Not mine.
deuce.
Not mine.
Gottliebin's.
My cousin's. Yeah.
And that's the demonic possession of Gottliebin. It's insane.
I feel like there needed to be a Hollywood and then while she was being lifted to the ceiling with his final sweat and it's like 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Blumhardt was just like, and then it's just like there was like this sacred thing he wasn't going to say, but he finally said it after he came to terms with his own demons, and he said it, and all the righteousness and the power came through her, and it was like, fine, I'm leaving. I don't like you guys anyway.
Yeah. And then 1,067 demons left out.
Like a stampede.
Yeah, no, it was piecemeal. Done piece
Well,
at a
it
time.
makes it more real in a way.
We'll talk about that.
No, I'm not saying, I'm not saying that, but yeah.
But let's talk about this in the discussion. At this point in the episode, we'd like to stop and thank our patrons as of this recording who are with us now. They are Vanessa, Octavia, which I love that, so Roman, Jessica, Scott, and Seth. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Patreon adventure. We got a lot going on Patreon. Tyler, do you have one thing you want to showcase?
I do. And like Charlie just said, there's a lot going on. We are meeting with producer Ben right now to kind of revamp, potentially add to the Patreon, and we'll keep you all updated on that. But for the time being, as it stands now, we have 3 tiers. We have the abducted tier, we have the bizarros tier, and we have the dedicated tier. And I want to mention something that is in the lowest tier, our $2 tier, that every single patron can enjoy. When you start listening to an episode, you hear some rockin' music, and at the end of an episode, or before you listen to another one, because it's like popcorn, you can't listen to one, you got to do a couple. You hear music at the end. Those 2 songs, our intro music and our outro music, are available for any patron, whether you have a Google phone, whether you have a iPhone, I'm sure I don't think it works with track phones. I don't know if anyone has a track phone
You can
anymore.
try, I guess.
And you really shouldn't have a Google phone or a Samsung. Like, you should have an iPhone. But regardless, we still made it for you. You can download those and use those as ringtones, alarms to wake up to. Not for too long. You don't want to associate the music with waking up. That's not a good. I mean, waking up's a good thing, but not for.
Maybe just use it on the weekend.
Maybe on the weekend. Whatever is good for your circadian rhythm. But our intro outro music is available for any patron to download for however they'd like to use it.
Yeah, that's it's pretty cool stuff. Great art, really cool art. And also, I want to showcase this game called Do You Believe the Bizarre?
Yeah.
It's, I think, maybe our staple game. It's got the most complicated rules.
It does have the most complicated rules.
But essentially, there's 3 rounds. Producer Ben, he writes 3 stories, and he finds, how many is that? 9 other stories?
So there's 3 rounds. He finds 2 stories that are, quote, real, and he writes one himself.
For every round.
And then we have to guess which ones we think are real and which one's fake.
And usually what happens is Tyler guesses correctly, and I don't. Sometimes I get it right, though.
Yeah.
And sometimes neither of us get it.
Yeah, but Ben's not allowed to win. No. That's an understood.
Yeah.
We just don't win.
Yeah, it's a fun game. A lot of fun to hear us banter and to me complain, and Tyler being very happy about winning.
Yeah, and Ben does a lot of work. Producer Ben does a lot of work behind the scenes. Let's give him a little round of applause real quick. Shout out Producer Ben, the unsung hero of Believe in the Bizarre, along with some other people.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, definitely check out, if you're in the Patreon already and you haven't already, check out Do You Believe the Bizarre? But that being said, let's get into the discussion. So Gottliebin. She was possessed, apparently. I find it dubious and not...
You have no credence?
I don't know if I give it enough credence that she was possessed. I don't know. A lot of crazy stuff happened to her. A lot of things happened to her. A lot of the throwing up things. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the elephant in the room.
That's the elephant in the room.
Definitely.
Not like liquid blister bubbles or
that
swimming in her own blood or
the liquid blister bubbles happen. I've seen that happen.
Just something you got to tell me about them.
It just happens.
Okay. Let's talk after this podcast.
Okay. Go ahead. But the throwing up things, I don't think that's possible.
Well, it's a matter of how it came to be. Like, did possessed Gottliebin swallow it? And then unpossessed her, like when her moments of clarity, she's vomiting it, or did they like spawn it inside of her, like when you spawn in a game and you're not supposed to be there. Then they lagged and glitched.
The frog's like, oh no,
how did I get it? Damn it!
I think that they're saying that these things came from inside her.
Yeah, so she didn't swallow them and then them come out because they were the animals alive or are they dead?
They were alive.
Okay, man.
Yeah, it's like reverse birth.
Yeah, I don't. It just kind of goes down to how far into the wilderness are you willing to go? Like, how much are you willing to suspend your disbelief when it comes to these stories?
Thankfully, I've never witnessed anything like that. Hopefully, I never do.
Yeah.
But until I do witness something like that, I don't think I can believe it. Is that fair?
The problem is, and I do this a lot with listener submissions, is like, you're looking as much like... When we're telling the stories, it's about being freaked out in the moment and a good story. But now it's like, okay, what is the one detail I can't buy? And if there's a detail I can't buy, what does that say about every other detail that I initially bought?
Yeah, and that's how I feel about this vomiting. All these metal objects that would certainly kill somebody.
Yeah. I think what I don't like about it, well, I mean, if it's true, there's a lot I don't like about it. But so you said the article was from Blumhardt. Right?
Yes, essentially, yeah.
I don't like that this dude who initially had no interest in helping her, like, it almost feels like he found it an opportunity to, like, gain something from it.
Yeah, he wrote the book about what happened.
Yeah, it's not like the family wrote it, Hans or anyone else. It's like the guy who really didn't initially want to help decided to help and prolong this. Not that I'm saying he could have done it sooner, but then he's also the one telling the story.
He's like the reluctant hero, right?
Yeah, how much is embellished to show what he's doing, like, or I don't know. Like, I think I'm not a religious person, but there's a part of me that is absolutely terrified of possessions. Yeah. Like, demonic movies are always going to be some of the scariest things ever.
If it was dark in here, this could have been a lights out episode.
Yeah, we also have a time crunch, which is probably affecting us a little. I don't know. Like, if I saw this, this is terrifying, but it felt like it's tough having it be a one source story and from the person who's doing it. Like, what is the family like? This is 2 years. What is the family doing? Like,
yeah,
it feels.
I find it interesting that the possession kind of transferred at the end a little bit to the sister and the brother.
Yeah, and also like, so was it this witch like woman, or this woman who killed children who summoned these, or was it her cousin who sold her soul to the devil?
Exactly. Which one? Although maybe the latter led itself to the former.
I guess. I don't. Like, I thought that. I thought maybe some of the noises in the house, like the boots walking. I'm like, maybe these aren't demons. Maybe these are the people that were like killed there, or they're like their souls were trapped because of this conjuring, and they were released from the burnings, but they weren't bad. They were just bound there. But then it was like, oh yeah, there's 1,000 demons inside of her, and it's like, is that true? Okay, one, did the demon tell you that, which may or may not make it true?
Mm.
And if they didn't tell you that, you're making it up. Are you doing it to make it seem like what you're doing is extraordinary? Person who's writing the story.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, even we've done stories in the past, like Poltergeist, where we've been on the fence, even when you have reporters coming in and be like, yeah, the reporters saw this thing levitate.
There's no credible third party witness here.
But I mean, that my ears perked up when you were like, the city had 2 police officers by the house, and neighbors did hear noises.
That's true, but could that be the family just being crazy, making a ruckus?
Well, what would cause the lights in the room?
I don't know. That's a weird one.
Like, I definitely can't go unbelievable on this, but I can't. I don't think I can go higher than skeptical.
Yeah,
it like definitely between the skeptical and viable range. Not near believable, not near unbelievable. But it's tough because like it's a rural town. I want more sources, and maybe there just can't be. But I
don't think it can because it's early 1800s.
2 years.
And also,
there were no podcasts back then.
No,
my haunted neighbor
for sure would have been all over this. My outhouse demon.
There's no journalist then.
No, I mean, there were, but like 1800s.
That's like news.
In the cities.
That's newspapers popping time in the 1800s. It all went downhill after that. Yeah. Digital age. I don't like. It sucks because this could actually be the worst possession ever and a real thing that really happened to someone and just terrifying and horrible. And I feel bad that we talked about it for 40 minutes and we're going to be like, unbelievable. Because, like, it's kind of like, who are you to say that?
Yeah.
But it's just based on this story, based on what we know, who told it, his reluctance, some of the far-fetching. But it's like, okay, and I always go back, like, we had the ramen noodle rant. But, like, I personally have a skinwalker issue where if I can believe that this person can change into an owl, why can't she have frogs come out of her mouth?
Or maybe it's just embellished, like you said. Like, maybe this did happen to an extent and was embellished to make it seem like it did happen, but he also added on to it. And like, that could be true.
And
too.
It's like also like that creative writer where, it's like act 1 is the easiest, act 2 is hard, and it's hard to make a good ending. Mm-hmm. And he's just like, fuck it, I'm just going to end it. She got better.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Here, publish this, Penguin. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm gonna go skeptical.
I think I have to go with viable. I have to go with viable.
Yeah.
Because I feel like definitely something happened in this house.
Yeah.
The witchcraft elements alone make it, there's something definitely happened. I don't know to what extent. I don't know if it was possession. I severely doubt that she threw up those things.
1,000 demons too. It's just like,
but you have no reliable narrator.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at least it's a close source. I guess like the counter argument is, would you rather have it be written by somebody who wasn't there? Somebody on Blogspot, like, okay, good point. Maybe it is better to have someone there. Honestly, for some reason, I wish it was written by a family member. Like, I wish it was written by
like the oldest brother or something.
Something like that. Even though you could say they profit.
That might be less biased though. I don't know about that.
Well, they'd be firsthand witnessing everything without being involved in it.
That's true.
To a certain degree, they're involved in it. I don't know. Like, I would love to hear one of their perspectives on the entire thing and see, do they all buy into it? It's also like, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it was mental illness.
No.
It doesn't seem like she had a sickness that she, like mad cow disease or something like that.
How scary is the unseen hands leaving the blisters though?
A lot of it's scary.
Yeah.
All of it, if any of this is real, it's very, very scary.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of possibly the worst demonic possession ever.
The possession.
Gottliebin
Dittus.
I knew it was going to be a possession when I picked this episode. I didn't know how extreme it was going to be.
Yeah. So it claims, okay, at face value, I could see it being the worst. But we're skeptical. How do you think this really compares to Annalise? I mean, there's a gauntlet of things.
They're both real bad. They're both in Germany. Funny enough.
It's true.
Yeah, they're both really bad. Although I'd say this is not as bad because she didn't die.
That's true. It has at least a happier ending.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll get paid in checks. Let's back pay for 2 years.
She got better.
Every day.
Yeah. That's a good point. But it's nonetheless frightening.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, I couldn't go unbelievable because who knows? But if this did happen, man, it's just like, even not being religious, the demonic stuff is so terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, because we talk about it all the time. It's intent, right? Like, these are things that are intending to harm you, to torment you.
The worst intention for
Loveland Frogman's just chilling.
He's got his wand.
Yeah. He's just like, hey, I'm here, you're here, what's up? But these guys, like, they're throwing a party.
Yeah.
And invited,
in your bowels.
That's like when they, you got that friend that invites their entire friend group on Facebook to like their page or something. Like, they did that and everyone responded. They're like, yes, I'm there. What time? What should I bring?
Yeah.
I'm going to bring a frog. I'm going to bring my shoe buckle.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. But if you like this episode and you want to hear more from us, please go ahead and give us a 5-star review, 5-star, and a review on Apple.
Or let me implore you, if you're a Spotify listener, because I just found out you have to log in and approve them. Because at first I'm like, this is nothing. And I logged in and there was like 67 responses to our previous episode on Spotify where it's like, what did you think of this episode? And I put a poll out on a previous episode, by the way. I might put a poll out on this one. I might put the believability scale on this episode on Spotify. So look for that. But let us know what you think. There's so many responses. There are a lot of, oh man, that's great. And there are a lot of really good comments, but I specifically said to SEO spam it if you're allowed to do it. So I have to shout out Lacey, who wrote, I think this paranormal podcast about ghosts and other paranormal creepy things, #paranormal podcast, #scary, was very good. I'll take my 2 shout outs now. Love you guys. Thank you, Lacey. That's funny. But like, I literally read through all of them. They're all published so you can all see them, but it's very kind. I love seeing these. And
yeah, definitely keep them up. They're really cool.
It's cool because it's a really direct way to comment on an episode without it being like on a platform like Instagram. And I love Instagram. I'm fine with Facebook. But like, if someone new and this is good for all podcasts, if somebody new is looking for a new podcast and they see an episode, why not go directly to that episode and see what people are saying about that episode? Like, yeah. I think it's a really cool new feature. And honestly, I'll say this one more time. I'll put it out in the ether. Spotify, if you want us to be exclusive with you, I will cut ties with Apple tomorrow.
We'll talk about it.
We will talk about it. But thank you everybody so much for listening. We appreciate y'all coming with us on this paranormal journey, leaving the comments and the DMs and the posts and all that. We appreciate it. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
Podcast as bizarre as you are.